The mountain disappeared in less than 5 minutes. That was how fast the storm came in. One moment, Ethan Walker could still see the ridgeline stretching ahead of him, sharp and familiar against a pale winter sky. The next, the wind rose with a violent howl, snow exploding sideways and erasing the world beyond a few feet. Landmarks vanished. The trail vanished. Even the sound of his own footsteps was swallowed by the storm. Ethan stopped moving. He knew better than to keep walking blindly on a mountain. He checked his compass. The needle spun uselessly, trembling and refusing to settle. Somewhere during the climb, it had been damaged by the cold, or by a fall he barely remembered. He tapped it once. Twice. Nothing. White filled everything, sky, ground, distance. There was no up or down anymore, only freezing air biting through his jacket and the growing weight of silence inside his head. Ethan forced himself to crouch behind a rock, shielding his face from the wind. His breath came fast and shallow, fogging the inside of his goggles. Panic hovered close, sharp and tempting, but he pushed it back. Panic wastes energy. Energy meant warmth, warmth meant time. He stayed there as the storm screamed around him, counting his breaths, flexing his fingers to keep feeling in them. Minutes blurred into something longer. Eventually, the wind softened, the snow slowed, and then light. The clouds thinned just enough for the sun to break through, weak but unmistakable. The world didn't return all at once. It came back in pieces, shadows, edges, contrast. Ethan stood carefully, legs stiff, and looked around. The mountain was still a blank sheet of white, no trail, no trees, no ridgeline he recognized. But the sun was there, and so was his shadow. It stretched long and dark across the snow, the only solid thing in an empty world. Ethan's breath caught. Years ago, during a wilderness navigation course he'd almost skipped, an instructor had demonstrated something that had seemed outdated at the time, primitive even. "You don't need a compass to find direction," the man had said. "You just need the sun. And a stick." Ethan didn't have a stick, but he had himself. He planted his boots firmly in the snow and studied the shadow at his feet. In the northern hemisphere, he remembered, shadows point roughly north at midday. In the morning and afternoon, they stretch differently, marking time as well as direction. He checked his watch. Late morning. The sun sat low but rising. His shadow angled away from him, long and thin. Slowly, carefully, Ethan turned his body, watching how the shadow shifted. He aligned himself until the shadow fell directly behind him. That direction, he knew, pointed roughly south. Down. Not toward the summit. Toward the valley. Ethan swallowed and nodded once. This was his way out. He began to walk, not fast, not carelessly. Each step was deliberate, conserving energy, scanning the snow for changes in texture, for slope, for any hint of descent. He adjusted his direction repeatedly, stopping to recheck his shadow as the sun climbed higher. Time passed strangely. The cold was still there, but it no longer felt infinite. His legs burned, his shoulders ached. Doubt crept in with every hour that passed without a landmark. What if he was wrong? What if the storm came back? He stopped, turned again, and checked his shadow. Still right. Still guiding him. Then finally, something broke the white. A dark line. At first, he thought it was another shadow playing tricks on his exhausted eyes. He blinked hard and stepped closer. It didn't move, it didn't disappear, it was real. A tree! Small. Bare, half buried in snow. Ethan staggered forward and dropped to his knees in front of it. His gloved hands pressed against the rough bark, and his chest hitched as the sound tore out of him. Half sob, half laugh. After hours in a world with no features, no direction, no life, that tree meant everything. Trees meant lower elevation. Lower elevation meant shelter. It meant survival. Tears froze on his cheeks as he stood again, following the line where one tree became two, then many. The slope grew gentler, the wind softened, the air changed. When he finally reached the edge of the tree line and saw the faint curve of a familiar path below, the mountain behind him already darkened with gathering clouds. Another storm was coming, but it was too late. Ethan had beaten it. Rescue teams would later say he had made the smartest decision possible, one based not on strength or speed, but on patience and ancient knowledge. He never climbed that mountain again. but he never forgot the moment his own shadow showed him the way home. If this story made you see the wilderness differently, subscribe to the channel and leave a like to support more real survival stories, where intelligence, not luck, makes the difference. One day, this knowledge could save your life too. Thanks, and see you in the next video.